At the outset of an intriguing journey, an incident unfolds that sets the tone for the entire experience. In the bustling terminal of an upscale airline, three identical triplets, Isabella, Sophia, and Olivia, radiate excitement as they prepare to board a flight promising the luxuries of premium cabin travel. However, their joyful anticipation is abruptly disrupted by the actions of a stern flight attendant named Veronica Masters. Dressed in her uniform and exuding an air of authority, Veronica immediately singles out the young travelers based solely on their casual appearance, questioning whether they rightfully belong in such an exclusive setting. Veronica's demeanor is marked by a rigid adherence to protocol, yet it quickly becomes apparent that her scrutiny is laced with personal bias. Rather than welcoming the triplets with the courtesy typically extended to first-class passengers, she imposes unnecessary hurdles, casting doubt on the legitimacy of their boarding passes and even their overall suitability for premium service. In that charged moment, the spirit of hospitality is overshadowed by prejudice, highlighting how superficial judgments can lead to unwarranted discrimination. Unbeknownst to Veronica, the triplets' father, Alexander Pierce, plays a pivotal role behind the scenes. As a discreet co-founder of the airline, Alexander has long championed the ideals of fairness and respect. His unassuming presence on board, intentionally masked to observe the true nature of airline service, adds an unexpected layer of irony to the unfolding drama. This initial encounter is not simply about denying a seating upgrade, it is a powerful commentary on how first impressions can mask deeper truths, and how the veneer of professionalism can sometimes falter under the weight of personal prejudice. Where are you watching from? Let us know in the comments below. If this story made you reflect, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more powerful content. Alexander Pierce is not only a successful entrepreneur but also a dedicated visionary who has played an integral role in building one of the nation's most respected airlines. From humble beginnings to commanding boardrooms and overseeing sophisticated operations, Alexander's journey is marked by resilience, meticulous attention to detail, and a deep-seated commitment to excellence in customer service. As a co-founder of the airline, Alexander has always believed in experiencing his business from the passenger's perspective. He frequently embarks on flights incognito, accompanied by his identical triplets, Isabella, Sophia, and Olivia. This personal approach allows him to observe firsthand the quality of service, the interactions between crew and passengers, and the overall atmosphere on board. His discreet presence ensures that feedback is genuine and unfiltered, enabling him to make strategic improvements that honor the airline's founding values of respect, fairness, and hospitality. Alexander's business philosophy centers on the idea that every interaction, no matter how small, reflects the airline's commitment to its customers. He meticulously monitors how each employee upholds the standards set forth by the company. When he sees lapses, whether in customer care or service delivery, he takes them as opportunities for constructive change. This proactive approach has earned him a reputation as a fair and principled leader, one who is both hands-on and forward-thinking. In addition to his focus on service quality, Alexander is also known for his innovative strategies in modernizing the airline. He has invested in cutting-edge technology and training programs aimed at enhancing efficiency and ensuring that every flight offers a seamless, comfortable experience for travelers. His belief in constant evolution has driven him to integrate feedback loops into daily operations, so that the airline continually adapts to meet the evolving needs of its passengers. Alexander's dedication extends beyond business metrics. He views each journey as a lesson in human behavior and societal trends. By traveling incognito, he uncovers both the strengths and the hidden biases within the service environment, using these insights to further his commitment to equality and respect for all passengers. This blend of passion, innovation, and a personal touch defines his legacy as a leader who not only built an airline but also set a benchmark for customer care in the travel industry. The Pierce family's upcoming journey is a carefully orchestrated blend of leisure and learning, designed to create lasting memories while embracing educational opportunities. Alexander Pierce, along with his wife Rebecca and their identical triplets, Isabella, Sophia, and Olivia, has planned an excursion to Boston, a city celebrated for its rich history, academic institutions, and cultural landmarks. For this special trip, Alexander intentionally reserved first-class tickets. His goal was twofold: to provide his family with a comfortable, luxurious travel experience and to observe the airline's performance in its most premium setting. Maintaining his usual practice of traveling under the radar, he chose not to disclose his identity as a co-founder of the airline. Instead, he wished to experience the service as any other traveler would, ensuring that the quality of care remained consistent regardless of who was on board. The itinerary is meticulously planned. Upon arrival in Boston, the family will participate in guided tours of renowned museums, historical sites, and universities, enriching their understanding of American history and innovation. Rebecca, who has a keen interest in arts and culture, looks forward to exploring the city's vibrant theater district and attending a live performance. Meanwhile, the triplets are excited about interactive exhibits and hands-on educational programs that promise to make learning both fun and engaging. During the flight, every detail is scrutinized. Alexander, ever the vigilant observer, pays close attention to the cabin crew's interactions, the presentation of meals, and the overall ambience. He is particularly interested in ensuring that the personalized touches promised in first-class service are genuinely experienced by his family. The anticipation builds as the miles fly by, over 400 miles across the eastern seaboard, enabling them to enjoy a peaceful and reflective journey together. For Alexander, this trip represents much more than a simple vacation. It is a testament to his belief in the power of travel to educate, transform, and bring people together. By choosing a destination steeped in academic and cultural significance, he hopes to instill in his family a lifelong appreciation for learning and exploration. As the Pierce family embarks on this adventure, they are united not only by blood but also by a shared commitment to discovering the world with open hearts and inquisitive minds. Veronica Masters, a seasoned flight attendant with years of experience, stood at the threshold of the first-class cabin, her eyes scanning each passenger with a meticulous gaze. As the Pierce family approached, her attention immediately shifted to the details that set them apart from the typical refined travelers of this exclusive space. Accompanied by her wife Rebecca and their three identical triplets, Isabella, Sophia, and Olivia, the family appeared markedly casual in both attire and demeanor. Instead of the polished ensembles and understated elegance that Veronica expected, they were dressed in comfortable, everyday clothing, a choice that struck her as incongruent with the premium experience that first class demanded. Veronica's instinct was to uphold the standards of the airline, and she could not help but question whether the Pierce family truly belonged in this sophisticated setting. With a measured, almost clinical precision, she began scrutinizing the boarding passes that had been presented at the gate. Each pass was examined with an unwavering focus, as if she were verifying the very legitimacy of their booking. The details printed on the documents were compared against her internal checklist, a set of expectations forged from years of service and a deep commitment to maintaining the integrity of first-class travel. Her eyes then wandered back to the family. The triplets, in particular, exuded a vibrant energy that was at odds with the reserved, dignified behavior she associated with first-class passengers. Their casual, unpretentious style, marked by bright colors and comfortable fabrics, stood in stark contrast to the refined, meticulously chosen outfits typically seen on board. Even Alexander and Rebecca's understated clothing failed to align with Veronica's vision of premium elegance. These discrepancies prompted her to wonder if perhaps the family's appearance was a deliberate ploy or simply an oversight, a matter that required further investigation. Determined to preserve the exclusive standards of the cabin, Veronica stepped forward with a firm, yet polite, demeanor. She began a series of pointed inquiries, requesting additional identification and re-examining the boarding passes with a furrowed brow. Each question was laced with an air of skepticism, as she sought to uncover any detail that might suggest an error or a breach in protocol. Despite the family's courteous responses and calm cooperation, her internal doubts persisted, fueled by the stark difference between their casual presentation and the polished expectations of first-class service. In that charged moment, Veronica's commitment to enforcing the rules took precedence over the warm hospitality that might otherwise have defined the encounter. Her relentless scrutiny, though intended to ensure the proper allocation of privileges, inadvertently cast a shadow over the family's journey. This initial interaction not only set a tone of unease but also foreshadowed the deeper issues of bias and assumption that would soon emerge. Veronica's uncompromising adherence to procedure underscored the delicate balance between maintaining service standards and recognizing the individual humanity of every traveler, a lesson that would later resonate far beyond the confines of that single flight. As the flight settled into a quiet hum of in-flight service, Veronica Masters maintained her unwavering vigilance over the Pierce family. Even after the initial boarding process, she could not shake off her doubts about their eligibility to enjoy the first-class experience. Every smile, every burst of laughter from the identical triplets, Isabella, Sophia, and Olivia, seemed to fuel her skepticism. Veronica's eyes tracked their every movement, and her demeanor grew increasingly formal and guarded, as though she were determined to catch any deviation from the expected decorum of a first-class passenger. Throughout the flight, Veronica made it her personal mission to inspect every detail. Even as Alexander Pierce and his wife, Rebecca, tried to settle into the plush comfort of their seats, Veronica would occasionally appear at their row with a measured, almost clinical scrutiny. On several occasions, she would pause by the family's compartment, her gaze lingering a moment too long on the triplets as they whispered excitedly among themselves about the panoramic views outside the window. In those fleeting instants, Veronica's expression hardened into one of disapproval, as if their youthful exuberance were an affront to the sanctity of first-class travel. At one point, as the cabin crew distributed gourmet meals, Veronica's attention was drawn to the way the triplets casually chose their snacks, opting for comfort foods rather than the refined selections typically associated with premium service. When a flight attendant approached to offer them the specially curated menu, Veronica interjected with pointed questions. "Are these selections really reflective of the class you're traveling in?" she asked, her tone leaving little room for doubt. Her questions, though cloaked in the language of policy, carried an undercurrent of condescension that made the family feel as though they were under a microscope. Despite the consistent reassurance from the other crew members that the family's boarding passes were valid and their reservation in first class unquestionable, Veronica persisted. Every time the triplets giggled at a shared secret or exchanged a look of wonder at the sky-high vistas, Veronica's steps quickened as if compelled to check on them once more. Alexander, aware of the subtle but persistent intrusion, maintained his calm exterior. He politely reassured Veronica each time she approached with further questions, yet his eyes betrayed a hint of mounting frustration. Rebecca, too, found herself stifling a sigh as Veronica's relentless vigilance began to erode what was meant to be an enjoyable journey. Throughout the flight, Veronica's continued scrutiny became the silent, uninvited soundtrack to the Pierce family's experience. Her actions were not overtly disruptive in a way that would force a public confrontation, but the underlying tension was palpable. The family exchanged quiet glances of discomfort, and the triplets, although still brimming with excitement, began to lower their voices, uncertain if their enthusiasm was somehow out of place. Veronica's insistence on verifying every detail, even double-checking the names and seat assignments printed on the boarding passes, gave the impression that nothing about the family's presence in first class was acceptable to her. At one juncture, when the family was enjoying a moment of serene quiet as the plane cruised above the clouds, Veronica approached once again. This time, she asked to see the boarding passes for a third time, citing a minor discrepancy in the formatting of the names. Her tone was both meticulous and unyielding, leaving no room for a simple explanation or a gentle smile. The repeated interrogations, though technically within the bounds of her responsibilities, began to feel more like an unwarranted personal vendetta. The atmosphere in the cabin grew thick with a sense of injustice, an unspoken acknowledgement that, regardless of the validity of the documents, the family was being made to feel as if they were perpetually on trial. Alexander, though remaining composed outwardly, couldn't help but internally question the fairness of the situation. Here he was, a co-founder of the airline who had built the very institution that now seemed to be faltering under the weight of outdated biases. His hope for an unblemished travel experience for his family was marred by Veronica's overzealous adherence to protocol. He began to wonder if the rigorous enforcement of rules, in this case, had crossed the line from ensuring safety and order into the realm of personal prejudice. Rebecca, ever the mediator, quietly attempted to defuse the tension whenever Veronica's presence became too pronounced. She would engage in gentle conversation with other passengers and crew, subtly steering the focus away from the constant verifications. Yet, the undercurrent of Veronica's disapproval was inescapable, a reminder that sometimes, even in the most sophisticated settings, human biases can intrude upon moments meant for relaxation and enjoyment. By the time the flight neared its destination, the cumulative effect of Veronica's repeated inspections had left a lasting impression on the Pierce family. The first-class experience, which should have been defined by luxury and seamless service, was instead tainted by an air of suspicion and relentless oversight. While the rest of the cabin buzzed with the anticipation of the impending arrival and the promise of new experiences, the Pierce family was left grappling with the unsettling realization that, despite having all the credentials, their right to an unprejudiced experience had been undermined by the very person tasked with upholding it. In the quiet moments before landing, as the plane began its descent and the vast expanse of clouds gave way to the sprawling city below, Alexander silently vowed that he would address the incident once they landed. His mind was set on ensuring that the standards of fairness and respect were not only upheld in policy but also in practice. Veronica's continued scrutiny was a stark reminder of the challenges that still lurked beneath the polished veneer of modern air travel, a challenge that he intended to meet head-on in the days to come. As the flight continued its smooth journey above the clouds, a palpable sense of discomfort began to cloud the first-class cabin. The Pierce family, Alexander, his wife Rebecca, and their three identical triplets, Isabella, Sophia, and Olivia, had already endured a series of repeated checks and pointed inquiries from Veronica Masters, the vigilant flight attendant. Yet, nothing could have prepared them for the moment when Veronica's scrutiny escalated to demanding a full verification of the triplets' identification. It was mid-flight when Veronica, with an unwavering gaze and a tone that brooked no argument, announced her need to confirm the identities of Isabella, Sophia, and Olivia. "I'm sorry, but I must see proper identification for these young ladies once more," she declared, her voice carrying a hint of finality that left no room for negotiation. The announcement rippled through the cabin like a low, persistent hum of tension that could be felt by everyone in the vicinity. Alexander, seated with calm composure despite the situation, exchanged a brief, knowing glance with Rebecca. Though his face remained impassive, a storm of frustration and dismay churned beneath his calm exterior. In his mind, he recalled the countless times he had endured similar checks incognito on flights, all in the name of ensuring a high standard of service. Yet, never before had he witnessed such an unyielding, almost personal insistence on what should have been a routine procedure. The triplets, normally the epitome of youthful excitement and charm, visibly shrank under the weight of the extra attention. Isabella, usually the first to giggle and share a mischievous smile with her sisters, bit her lip nervously. Sophia's bright eyes, once filled with wonder at the view from the window, now darted anxiously between her father and the flight attendant. Olivia, the quietest of the three, seemed almost to withdraw into herself, her usual spark dimmed by the harsh light of scrutiny. Veronica approached their row with a clipboard in hand, her steps measured and her expression unyielding. "May I see your identification, please?" she asked once more, addressing the triplets directly. Her words were not loud, but their tone carried the weight of someone accustomed to enforcing rules without exception. The request was repeated with a formality that bordered on ritualistic, an attempt to assert her authority in a situation where, ideally, such authority should have been unnecessary. Rebecca, sensing the mounting anxiety in her children, gently reached out to comfort them. "It's all right, sweethearts," she murmured softly, her voice a tender counterpoint to the rigid formality that surrounded them. Yet, even as she offered solace, the air of discomfort was undeniable. Other passengers cast sympathetic, albeit discreet, glances in their direction, silently acknowledging the unwarranted tension. Inside, Alexander's mind raced with conflicting thoughts. His role as a co-founder of the airline had taught him that while rules and procedures were essential, they should never override the basic principles of courtesy and respect. He felt a deep sense of injustice as Veronica's actions undermined the spirit of hospitality that he had worked so hard to foster. Each additional check, each reiteration of her demands, struck him as an affront not just to his family's dignity, but to the very ethos of fair treatment that he championed. Veronica's persistence did not stem from a genuine concern for security or compliance, rather, it appeared to be driven by a bias that viewed the Pierce family's casual demeanor as incompatible with the refined standards of first-class travel. In her mind, the triplets' youthful energy and informal style were evidence of an anomaly, something that required closer inspection. Yet, to Alexander and Rebecca, these were simply the natural expressions of children experiencing the wonder of flight, a far cry from any deliberate act of defiance. The situation reached a crescendo when Veronica, after scrutinizing the identification documents, paused and looked directly at Alexander. In that charged moment, the silent communication between them spoke volumes. Alexander's composed exterior concealed a simmering frustration, a resolve that this incident would not pass without consequence. He maintained a respectful tone as he replied, "Everything seems to be in order, yet your repeated checks are causing unnecessary distress to my family." His words, firm yet polite, resonated with the quiet dignity of a man who had long navigated the complexities of leadership and service. As the minutes ticked by, the tension in the cabin slowly gave way to an uneasy quiet. Veronica, though still vigilant, allowed herself a brief pause, as if contemplating the impact of her actions. The incident, now etched into the collective memory of that flight, served as a stark reminder of how rigid adherence to protocol, when mixed with personal bias, can disrupt the harmony of an otherwise smooth journey. In the aftermath of the repeated interrogations, a lingering discomfort settled over the Pierce family. The atmosphere was heavy with the unspoken acknowledgement that what had transpired was more than a mere procedural check. It was a confrontation with an outdated mindset that refused to acknowledge the inherent dignity of every traveler. For Alexander, this episode would later fuel a deeper commitment to ensuring that the principles of fairness and respect were not just written into policy, but truly embodied in every interaction within his airline. Veronica's insistence on verifying the triplets' identities had transformed a simple check into a moment of escalating tension, one that left its mark on everyone involved. It was a turning point, a moment that underscored the fragile balance between order and compassion, between protocol and the human element. And as the flight continued its journey across the skies, each member of the Pierce family silently hoped that this episode would serve as a catalyst for change, not only in the way rules were enforced but in the way every individual was treated with the dignity they deserved. After the plane touched down and the first-class cabin slowly emptied, a quiet tension lingered among the crew. Veronica Masters, still reeling from the relentless scrutiny she had imposed on the Pierce family during the flight, found herself standing in the crew lounge, her thoughts heavy with uncertainty about whether her actions had been justified. The echo of hushed conversations in the background only served to amplify the weight of the situation, as whispers of the incident had already begun circulating among the staff. It was in this charged atmosphere that Trevor Lang, a longtime colleague and close confidant of Alexander Pierce, approached Veronica with an expression that combined concern and resolve. Trevor had been briefed on the day's events through a series of informal channels, and he felt compelled to address what he believed was a serious misjudgment on Veronica's part. With calm determination, he initiated the conversation by stating, "Veronica, I understand you encountered some difficulties with a family on today's flight. There's something you need to know about the Pierce family that might shed a different light on what transpired." Veronica's eyes narrowed slightly as she listened, still trying to rationalize her actions. Trevor continued, "Alexander Pierce, the father of the family, isn't just any passenger. He's a co-owner of this very airline, a fact that I'm certain you were not aware of during your interactions." For a moment, time seemed to slow as the revelation sank in. Veronica's mind raced back over every detail of the day, the repeated checks, the insistent demands for identification, and the palpable discomfort that had slowly enveloped the family. The realization that she had been scrutinizing one of the company's highest-ranking figures struck her like a bolt of lightning. Veronica's composure faltered as the gravity of the situation became clear. I had no idea," she stuttered, her voice betraying a mix of shock and regret. Trevor's tone, though empathetic, did not mask his disappointment. "Veronica, our airline stands on principles of fairness and respect. It's crucial that every passenger, regardless of their background or appearance, is treated with the dignity they deserve. Today's actions, however well-intentioned under the guise of upholding protocol, have inadvertently undermined those principles." The conversation grew increasingly intense as Veronica was forced to confront the personal bias that had tainted her judgment throughout the flight. She recalled how the casual demeanor of the triplets, Isabella, Sophia, and Olivia, had set off an internal alarm within her, prompting her to question their legitimacy. Now, faced with the fact that Alexander Pierce himself was a pillar of the company, Veronica felt an overwhelming mix of embarrassment and remorse. Her earlier insistence on excessive verifications seemed less a matter of duty and more an expression of misplaced prejudice. As the discussion unfolded, the gravity of the incident began to resonate not only with Veronica but also with the management present in the crew lounge. The revelation sparked an immediate review of her conduct that had been initiated even before Trevor's intervention. Senior management, committed to maintaining the airline's reputation for exceptional service, took swift action. Veronica was asked to provide a full account of the day's events, and the matter was escalated to a formal disciplinary review. It was clear that her repeated interrogations had not only compromised the dignity of the Pierce family but also risked undermining the core values of the airline. Trevor's revelation and the subsequent intervention served as a turning point. While Veronica was initially overwhelmed by shame and regret, the process of reflection that followed began to reveal deeper insights. In private debriefing sessions with her supervisor, she was encouraged to explore the origins of her biases and to understand how her actions, although framed as strict adherence to protocol, had strayed from the spirit of hospitality and fairness that the airline promised. The sessions were challenging, filled with candid discussions about the subtle ways in which personal prejudices could infiltrate even the most routine tasks. Yet, they also offered an opportunity for genuine growth. A chance for Veronica to learn from her missteps and to recommit herself to the principles of empathy and professionalism. For Alexander Pierce and his family, the revelation, though unsettling, brought a bittersweet sense of vindication. The incident, now publicly acknowledged by the airline's management, underscored the importance of remaining vigilant against discrimination, even within institutions that pride themselves on high standards of service. As Veronica faced disciplinary measures, including retraining on sensitivity and inclusivity, Alexander resolved that the day's events would serve as a catalyst for broader change within the company. In the end, the revelation was not merely about one individual's mistake, it became a powerful lesson in accountability, respect, and the transformative potential of honest self-reflection. While the incident left an indelible mark on all involved, it also opened the door for meaningful reform, ensuring that the values of fairness and dignity would remain at the heart of every journey with the airline. In the wake of the unsettling events on board, the atmosphere both in the cabin and within the airline's corridors shifted dramatically. As the Pierce family, Alexander, his wife Rebecca, and their identical triplets, Isabella, Sophia, and Olivia, stepped off the aircraft, a ripple of whispered conversations followed them. The incident involving Veronica Masters had not only left an indelible mark on their journey but had also ignited a series of swift, decisive actions by senior management. Immediately after the flight, an internal review was launched. The airline's leadership, determined to uphold the values of fairness and respect, initiated a thorough investigation into Veronica's conduct. In a formal meeting held within hours of the flight's conclusion, Veronica was called in to provide a detailed account of the day's events. Her explanations, though couched in the language of procedural adherence, revealed underlying biases that had led her to single out the Pierce family for repeated scrutiny. It soon became apparent that her actions were not merely an issue of misinterpretation of protocol but rather a manifestation of preconceived notions about how passengers should present themselves in first class. As the investigation unfolded, Alexander Pierce, whose quiet presence on board had been a calculated effort to observe genuine service quality, found himself reflecting on the broader implications of the incident. In an exclusive statement to the airline's board, he expressed a mixture of disappointment and determination. While I have traveled extensively and understand the necessity of maintaining high service standards, no passenger should ever have to endure a treatment that questions their dignity, he stated firmly. Alexander's words resonated deeply with many within the organization. He highlighted that such an incident was not a common occurrence for him. Indeed, most travelers do not have the recourse to confront or even notice such subtle acts of discrimination. His experience, he asserted, was a stark reminder that vigilance and accountability must be extended to every level of customer interaction. Within days, senior management took decisive disciplinary action against Veronica Masters. She was placed on administrative leave and scheduled to undergo an intensive retraining program focused on professionalism, sensitivity, and anti-bias practices. The training was designed not only to correct the behaviors that had led to the incident but also to foster a deeper understanding of the diverse backgrounds and experiences of the airline's passengers. This proactive approach aimed to rebuild trust both within the crew and among the frequent flyers who valued the airline's reputation for exceptional service. Rebecca, ever supportive and resilient, expressed both relief and a lingering sadness over the ordeal. In private conversations with fellow travelers and staff, she acknowledged that while the family had received the apologies and assurances that such behavior would be corrected, the emotional toll of being publicly scrutinized was not easily forgotten. The triplets, too, were comforted by the knowledge that their father's standing within the company and his commitment to fairness had led to meaningful consequences. Their youthful excitement, momentarily dampened by the experience, began to resurface as they saw firsthand that their ordeal had sparked real change. The ripple effects of the incident extended beyond immediate disciplinary measures. The airline initiated a series of internal discussions and workshops aimed at addressing implicit bias and promoting inclusivity. These sessions were open to all employees, from the frontline cabin crew to top-level executives, and were designed to serve as a platform for honest dialogue about the importance of empathy in customer service. As part of this initiative, the airline committed to regular follow-ups and assessments to ensure that the new training measures were not merely a temporary fix, but a permanent cultural shift. Moreover, the incident prompted the airline's public relations team to issue a formal statement. The statement acknowledged the mistake, expressed regret over the discomfort caused to the Pierce family, and outlined the steps being taken to ensure that every passenger would henceforth be treated with the utmost respect and dignity. This public apology was a crucial step in restoring the airline's image, emphasizing that no matter how polished the exterior of an institution might be, continuous effort was required to uphold its core values. For Alexander Pierce, the aftermath of the incident reinforced his belief in the transformative power of accountability. His experience became a catalyst for broader change within the company, a reminder that true progress could only be achieved when every individual, regardless of their position, was held to the same standard of respect and fairness. The episode served as a testament to the fact that even in the sophisticated environment of modern air travel, vigilance against discrimination must remain a top priority. In the months that followed, the airline saw a noticeable improvement in service delivery, as well as a more inclusive attitude among its staff. The changes, though born out of a difficult incident, ultimately contributed to a culture that prioritized empathy, respect, and genuine hospitality. The Pierce family's experience, while painful, had not been in vain. It had sparked a meaningful conversation and set in motion a series of reforms that promised to benefit every traveler who stepped onto the airline's aircraft, ensuring that fairness would become the standard in every interaction from that day forward. The return journey was markedly different from the earlier part of the flight, as the Pierce family, Alexander, his wife Rebecca, and their identical triplets, Isabella, Sophia, and Olivia, embarked on the homeward leg with a quiet sense of resolution. After the tumultuous events that had unfolded, the atmosphere within their private cabin was one of calm introspection rather than tension. The gentle hum of the engine seemed to underscore a new rhythm, one of healing, learning, and moving forward. During the smooth return trip, the triplets, who had once been overwhelmed by the repeated checks and unyielding scrutiny, now exhibited a noticeable sense of empowerment. Their earlier excitement had not waned, instead, it had transformed into a quiet confidence as they began to understand that their experience was not a reflection of their worth. They chattered softly amongst themselves, their conversation laced with newfound wisdom, as if each shared glance and smile conveyed the understanding that sometimes difficult moments can lead to unexpected personal growth. Alexander, seated by the window watching the clouds drift by, allowed himself a moment of quiet reflection. He thought deeply about the incident and how a single episode could reveal long-hidden biases. In his mind, the experience was a stark reminder that appearances and first impressions, no matter how superficial, often masked more profound truths about human behavior. He considered how the rigid adherence to protocol by Veronica Masters had led her to make assumptions based solely on the Pierce family's casual appearance. This, he mused, was not just an isolated lapse in judgment but a reflection of broader societal issues concerning fairness and respect. Rebecca, ever the gentle mediator, sat beside him, her eyes filled with empathy for both their children and for the lessons the day had taught them all. Sometimes, she whispered, experiences like these, though painful, open our eyes to the need for change. They remind us that respect should never be conditional. Her words resonated deeply with Alexander, reinforcing his belief that every individual, whether a high-ranking executive or a frequent flyer, deserved to be treated with dignity and consideration. While the family absorbed these lessons during their flight, Veronica Masters was undergoing a personal transformation of her own. In the days following the incident, she spent long hours reflecting on her actions, coming to terms with the fact that her biases had not only affected a family but also undermined the core values of the airline she served. Recognizing the gravity of her mistake, Veronica reached out with a heartfelt apology. In a carefully written message addressed to Alexander and his family, she expressed sincere regret for her behavior, admitting that her actions had been driven by misguided assumptions rather than genuine concern for safety or service. She acknowledged that her overzealous enforcement of rules had crossed the line into personal bias and promised to work diligently on overcoming these shortcomings. This apology, though it came after the fact, carried with it the potential for meaningful change. Alexander accepted Veronica's apology, not as a sign of weakness, but as an affirmation that growth was possible when one took responsibility for their actions. In the dialogue that followed, an exchange marked by a tone of mutual respect and a shared commitment to better practices, the incident was transformed from a moment of conflict into an opportunity for collective improvement. It was a powerful testament to the idea that while mistakes may occur, they can also serve as catalysts for introspection and progress. As the Pierce family disembarked and stepped into the cool air of the arrival terminal, Alexander carried with him a reinforced conviction: people can grow, and fairness should be the standard for every interaction. The day's events, painful as they had been, had sparked a chain reaction within the airline, prompting changes in policies and the re-examination of ingrained biases among staff. The lesson was clear: true progress is measured not by the absence of mistakes, but by the willingness to learn from them and to uphold a commitment to dignity and respect for all. In that quiet moment of departure, as the family moved toward the future, their experience served as both a personal and professional milestone, a reminder that every journey, however challenging, holds the promise of transformation and the hope of a more inclusive tomorrow. In the days following the flight, the atmosphere at the airline began to shift as Veronica Masters took decisive steps to make amends. Overwhelmed by the weight of her actions and the realization of how her biases had affected the Pierce family, Alexander, Rebecca, and their identical triplets, Isabella, Sophia, and Olivia, Veronica composed a heartfelt letter of apology. In her message, she openly acknowledged that her repeated scrutiny had been driven by misplaced assumptions, and she expressed deep regret for the distress she had caused. Veronica's apology went beyond simply admitting fault. It was a sincere promise to transform her approach to service. She detailed the reflective journey she had undertaken since the incident, admitting that the experience forced her to confront her own prejudices. Veronica committed herself to a comprehensive sensitivity and inclusivity training program, determined to ensure that her future conduct would embody the principles of fairness and respect that the airline claimed to uphold. Her words conveyed a genuine desire to evolve into a more empathetic and conscientious professional. Upon receiving the letter, Alexander Pierce felt a mixture of relief and cautious optimism. Although the Pierce family had endured a challenging ordeal, Alexander recognized that Veronica's willingness to admit her mistake and her proactive steps toward personal growth signaled a turning point. In his thoughtful reply, Alexander expressed gratitude for Veronica's honesty and acknowledged that every individual has the capacity to learn from their errors. He reiterated his belief that fairness should be the standard for all interactions, regardless of one's role or appearance, and that genuine change begins with accountability. Rebecca and the triplets, while still recovering from the earlier distress, appreciated the positive shift that Veronica's apology represented. The incident, which had once cast a long shadow over their journey, was now serving as a catalyst for meaningful reform, not only for one individual but for the airline as a whole. This final exchange of apologies and commitments marked a profound lesson. True progress arises when people are willing to face their shortcomings and work diligently to overcome them. The experience had underscored that while errors and biases might emerge even in the most professional settings, the determination to learn and improve can lead to lasting, positive change. As the Pierce family moved forward, they carried with them a renewed sense of hope and a steadfast belief in the power of personal transformation. The final lesson was clear: every mistake holds the potential to become a stepping stone toward a more inclusive and respectful future, where fairness is not just an ideal, but a lived reality for every traveler.